If you've ever trusted someone enough to hand them your house keys, imagine what it feels like when that same person shows up with a man holding a notary stamp. It happened to me. Thursday, 1:42 p.m., Austin, Texas. Ordinary sunlight on my front steps, and then my daughter kicked my door open so hard my fall wreath spun like a siren. She smiled, breathless, and said, "Mom, we just need your signature. It's standard. It'll protect you." Behind her stood a man with a briefcase, thumb on his notary journal like he had already decided who owned my name. And beside him, her fiancé, pretending he wasn't the one in charge. I was drying my grandmother's casserole dish when they tried to take the only thing she ever left me, my home. "Power of attorney," he said. "Just a form." But the paper said something else. Durable power of attorney. Transfer on death deed. My name was right. My street was wrong. That was the first mercy of the day. I looked at them and I said the only sentence that would keep my life my own. I'm not signing. That's where everything started. The fake bills. The stolen mail, and the night the doorbell camera caught exactly who was helping my daughter protect me. "I'm not signing," I said. Tessa laughed in a pitch I used to hear when she was 12 and asking for concert shoes we couldn't afford. "Mom, you asked me to help. Remember when you said the telemarketers at supper are rude?" I said telemarketers at supper are rude. I wiped my hands. "Where did you get these?" "Online," Noah said. "Everyone does it online now. Saves time. We can't waste the rate lock." The notary cleared his throat. "I'll need her driver's license," he said to no one in particular. "There won't be a license," I said, "because there won't be a signature." I turned to Tessa. "Tea?" "Mom," she said in the tone people use in waiting rooms when they want to escalate but not get thrown out, "this is to protect you, like today. We're doing this for you." "For me," I repeated. Noah lifted the corner of the file, flashing the top line of the deed. Grantor, Evelyn Ruth Reed. "It's not a big deal, but if you stall, the penalties are serious." I had been a nurse for 37 years. I had learned what people say when they're hiding pain and what they say when they're hiding motive. The difference is speed. Pain speaks slow. Motive speaks fast. I said, "Leave the papers, and I'll have someone read them." I was already reaching for the door. Tessa's smile didn't move, but her mouth did. "Shh, we brought the notary. Right now is the someone. We already covered his fee." "Then you wasted your money." It was quiet enough to hear the air vent flick. The notary stared at the top of his journal like it might open and swallow him. Noah blew air through his nose and unfolded his cap like he might put it on and go, only he didn't. Tessa's eyes went wet in a hurry that used to wreck me. Once upon a time, that rush of daughter tears could rearrange a week. "You don't trust me," she whispered. "Not with my house," I said. "Not with my voice. Not with my yes on a paper I didn't ask for." The notary packed. Noah reached for the file. Tessa didn't move. She stood statue still long enough that the muscles in her jaw trembled. When she looked up, the wetness evaporated, and for a beat I saw my girl at 17 caught in a lie about the graduation trip and making one last play. "You're making this hard," she said. "You always do, Mom." Noah opened the door. "Let's go," he muttered. He wasn't looking at me anymore. He was scanning the corners of my living room like a contractor pricing a demolition. They left. It took the wreath a full minute to stop spinning. The house went back to its noises. Ice maker thunk, clock on the stove, the neighbor's weed eater thrumming faint in the alley, and my heart worked its way back into my chest from wherever it had fled. I made tea. When the kettle hissed, I realized my hands were shaking hard enough that the teaspoon tapped the cup like a metronome. I put the spoon down and sat at the kitchen table where I have done my thinking for 43 years. 2 of them alone since Cal died. On the corkboard above the table is my whole life in pushpins. My church potluck calendar, my grandson's lopsided turkey hand, the pharmacy schedule, a sticky note with a password Tessa set for my streaming app that I keep because it is a language I don't speak. The first knock came 20 minutes later. The hard cop knock, 2 knuckles, 4 beats. I stood and the old nurse in me counted 1, 2, like heartbeats on a monitor. It was just the mail carrier with a certified letter, past due, utilities. Addressed properly. The amount was not. It was tripled. Another mercy. Another warning. I set the envelope on my placemat and took my tea to the couch. The TV remote sat where Cal used to keep it under the cushion because he didn't like dust on the buttons. I didn't turn it on. I stared at the ceiling fan. I listened to the house, which for all of its groans and flutters, has never once lied to me. I called the number on the utility bill. While I waited for a human, the recorded voice told me 15 ways to pay now. When the person finally came on, she was Midwestern kind. "Ma'am, you signed up for auto pay on a different card. It failed on the 15th and rebilled on the 19th and 21st. "What card?" I asked. She read the last 4 numbers that were close enough to my old Visa to make a person lazy. "Not mine. A cousin." "I didn't authorize this," I said. "We can revert, but if someone logged in with your account..." "How would someone log in?" She didn't answer because she couldn't. It wasn't her job to solve the part where your own child sits at your kitchen table and memorizes the answers to your security questions while acting like she's helping you pay for Prime shipping. When I hung up, I went to the bedroom and pulled the little lockbox from the top shelf of the closet. It contains birth certificates, the deed to the house Cal and I signed in a title office with too much air conditioning, the little baggie of baby teeth that mothers don't admit to keeping, and a shred of superstition in a pink ribbon. I also found what I feared, a folded index card in Tessa's hand with a tidy list of numbers. Driver's license, social, a date she called anniversary that was actually the day my father died because I used it for everything, and 3 questions with answers only a child would know. First pet, favorite teacher, and the street we lived on when Cal got the promotion. I tucked the card behind the marriage license and sat on the edge of the bed. Once, Cal would have said, "Let's call a guy," which was his solution for plumbing and taxes and the time a feral cat had kittens under the porch. Cal isn't here. The only guy I had was the one who brought me a notary like a birthday cake. My phone buzzed. Tessa. I let it go to voicemail. She didn't leave a message. She texted instead. "We're at H-E-B and my card won't go. Can you Venmo $300? It's groceries for tonight. Your grandson needs dinner." "Mom, the cashier is waiting." This is humiliating. The part of me that still goes soft at grandson almost opened the app. The other part of me remembered the man with the briefcase and the notary seal and my name on a line I hadn't asked for, and that part of me is the part that writes checks and prays to the God who sees both the need and the lie. I did not send the money. I sent one line back. "Come by at 7. We'll eat here." She didn't come. Instead, at 8:13 p.m., Noah called. "Hey, Evelyn," he said with a voice like he was on a work call, smiling into a conference table. "Just to clear the air, the POA would have solved all this." "Say that again?" I said. Not because I hadn't heard, but because one of the ways you buy time is by pretending you're hard of hearing. "Power of attorney," he said. "People do this so they don't get scammed by telemarketers. You're going to get scammed, Evelyn." He paused. "By someone else, I mean." I hung up. I'm not proud of it. Nurses don't hang up. We finish. We explain. But this wasn't triage. This was triage's evil cousin. Sleep didn't come. I watched the little blue of the streetlight tuck itself into the blinds and creep across the room. And when the creak of the house sounded like footsteps, I got up and checked the locks. Twice. Calm is a kind of oxygen. It can also suffocate if you're the only one breathing it. On Friday morning, I went to the Seaboard branch off South Lamar. I wore lipstick. Lipstick is for armor. The young man at the desk was named Blake, and he had a beard that could not be old enough to vote when I married Cal. I need to change my passwords, I told him, all of them. We can do that, he said, like a person 3 minutes into a shift. And I want you to put a note on my account that no one has authorization to speak for me, not my daughter, not her fiancé, not even a nun who says she's me. He typed, "We can add a high alert code, but anyone with your information." He didn't need to finish. Information was the new key under the mat. Blake looked up. "You're the third person this week," he said, then put his mouse back in neutral. "We'll add the note." When I came home, my neighbor was standing in my yard with her hands on her hips, studying my front soffit like a contractor. Naomi Whitaker taught 4th grade for 40 years, and now she teaches retirement like it's a class. "I'll pay for the latter," she said by way of greeting. "You pay for the doorbell camera. My son will install it after work." "I don't need a camera," I said. She looked at me over her glasses. "You also didn't need a notary yesterday." "Whose mouth told you that?" "Yours," she said. "You talk to the begonias. You think I don't hear you?" That night there was a camera on my porch. Out front, it caught kids on scooters and the pizza man and the way the sunset paints my neighbor's Ford a color you can't buy new. Inside, the little chime made a soft bird sound when anyone came near. I set my phone on the end table and read the manual like it was homework. At 11:32 p.m., the camera sent me a clip. The street was quiet. A figure moved. Noah. He bent at my mailbox, fiddled, straightened, walked back to Tessa's car. He had a key. He had my mail in his hand. I saved the clip. I texted Naomi, even though she sleeps like people did before electricity. She responded in 1 minute. "Good. Save it to the cloud and to a flash drive. 2 is 1 and 1 is none." She was a teacher. Of course she kept extra pencils. Saturday was ordinary, on purpose. I made pancakes because pancakes are cheap and they convince the body it has more friends than it does. I listened to the voicemail I hadn't wanted to hear. "Mom," Tessa said, too sweet, "I don't know what you're telling people, but Noah and I aren't the enemy. You're making something ugly out of help. It's sad to watch." Help. There it was again, like a blood pressure cuff, too tight. In the afternoon, I sorted papers on the dining room table. 7 envelopes with the same logo, a buy now, pay later app I never downloaded, 4 separate credit cards with my name and a different billing address, a utility I didn't use, and a pre-approval letter I could have sworn I shredded last month. I found numbers, dates, the kind of proof that calms one kind of person and enrages another. At 5:06, I called a number from a flyer Naomi slid under my door last winter after a talk at the library. Travis County Elder Law Center. Consults free. The receptionist put me on hold. When the attorney came on, his voice was the right pitch for bad news. Not alarm, not pity, gravity. "I am Arthur Kim," he said. "Tell me the simple version first." I told it. The simple version took 6 minutes and left out the part where my daughter knows the way my house smells after rain. "How old are you, Miss Reed?" 69 and a half. "Any official diagnosis related to cognition?" "My doctor says my only diagnosis is stubbornness." He chuckled once. "Okay, here's what's next. Freeze your credit, pull a full report, File an identity theft affidavit if the cards aren't yours. Start a log of contact, calls, door knocks, messages. Don't speak to them alone. Don't sign anything you didn't request. If they escalate to a guardianship petition, you'll be served. Call me the minute you are. Guardianship? I repeated, like a word you only use on a form for a child. Sometimes, he said softly, family calls control, care. We'll be ready. On Sunday, the usher at church put his hand on my elbow at the door, gentle. "It's good to see you, Evelyn," he said. I answered like a person who meant it and didn't. Naomi sat with me instead of her usual pew. We sang the third verse of a song I don't know anybody sings at home. During the last hymn, I wrote a list in the margins of the bulletin. Freeze, log, save clips, call Dr. Patel. I drew a little square and checked each box when the week came and went, and I did the thing I wrote. On Tuesday morning, the knock that isn't a neighbor came. A man in a navy windbreaker announced my name like a courtroom. He handed me an envelope with a seal. In the matter of the guardianship of Evelyn Ruth Reed, petitioner Tessa Jane Reed. The first page said I was in immediate need of protection due to erratic financial behavior. The second page listed incidents that read like a stranger's biography. Forgetting to pay utilities. I didn't forget, I reverted. Sending confused messages. I sent concise refusals. Being susceptible to scams. I refused a notary with my name on a line. I called Arthur. He answered on the first ring. "Bring it all in. Today." His office smelled like stubborn coffee. The chairs had more shape than comfort. He wore the same navy blazer you can buy at any mall when you plan to tell hard truths. His assistant copied the petition and my clips and my log and my list. Arthur read the petition once, then again. "They're moving fast. Ex parte. Emergency. Does that mean..." "That means they want it before we can talk back. But I'll talk." The hearing was set for Friday morning. In 3 days, my life would belong to a judge's schedule. Arthur's team gathered bank statements and recordings, and a letter from Dr. Patel that read like a piano scale. Steady, steady, steady. Naomi wrote a statement. The pastor wrote one too. I printed every email where Tessa used the word help and meant control. Thursday night, I slept. This is the part no one tells you. Sometimes when the worst thing is scheduled, the body rests like a child before a field trip. Morning would come, and with it the fluorescent hush of a courtroom, and I could not change that by worrying in the dark. At 8:07 a.m., Arthur met me on the courthouse steps. He did not touch my arm. Good attorneys never touch first. Naomi arrived with her tote bag, which could fit a flashlight and snacks for a week. We went in. Tessa was already there. Her hair was perfect. She wore the perfume she wore when she was 20 and wanted the room to tilt her way. Noah sat stiff with his hands stacked flat. Their attorney was younger than my grandson will one day be. When Tessa looked at me, she did what she does when she wants the jury of everyone to see a victim. She blinked slow, then nodded like she forgave me. The judge's name was Caldwell. He had the posture of a man whose back hurts, but who will not admit it in public. He read with his finger under the line. Arthur stood. No speech, no crescendo. He started with the log. Dates, times, images. He let silence do what prosecutors in hospital hallways do when they want a story to land in the chest and not the ears. He cued the doorbell clip of Noah taking my mail. He cued the notary visit on my living room camera. The audio was thin, but the angle was clear. Tessa's smile, my refusal, the notary's stamp hovering like a gavel. Then Arthur pulled the thread I hadn't seen. A phone recording from the bank. Seaboard logs calls, as banks do now, to improve customer service. On that call, someone who sounded very much like me authorized a change of address and added Noah as a contact. Only the cadence was wrong. The vowels were wrong. It was me if I had grown up 2 states over and never said y'all in my life. Voice cloning, Arthur said softly. We will not pretend to be experts. We will only say the bank flagged it as suspicious and Miss Reed reported it immediately. Tessa's attorney objected to the term because attorneys do. Arthur agreed to call it what the bank called it, an anomalous. And then Naomi spoke. Not in the way movies let neighbors speak, with speeches and finger-pointing. She told it plain. I saw them bring a notary without warning. I saw him take her mail. She told me what the bank told her. She installed a camera. She has been steady as a metronome about her weekday walks and her trash day and her gardening and her tithing. The only erratic thing is how quickly her piece went when this started. When it was Tessa's turn, she told the story as if she were a nurse and I were the patient. My mom has always been anxious, she said. She forgets things. She calls me at the grocery store panicked about prices. She cries. She won't let me help. She is stubborn about the wrong things. And the notary? The judge asked. We were trying to protect her home from predatory lenders. And the bank address change? I didn't do that, she said. I swear to God. She looked at Noah when she said it. He looked at the floor. What about the mail? The judge asked. He cleared his throat. I was helping, he said. I get it faster than the carrier sometimes if I'm there. The carrier comes at 2, the judge said. His mouth twitched. Every day. When the judge spoke his decision, I felt the third mercy of the week. It was in his tone. He said, petition for temporary guardianship is denied for lack of credible evidence of incapacity and in light of credible evidence of interference with Miss Reed's affairs. He ordered Tessa and Noah to cease contact except through counsel. He encouraged the county investigator to review the bank and credit irregularities. He said irregularities like a man who knows 9 synonyms but saves the sharpest for later. Outside, Arthur finally touched my arm. He said, breathe. I've been breathing, I said. Since 1973. He laughed, a sound like a paperclip snapping back into shape. You did good. Naomi pressed a peppermint in my palm the way teachers smuggle little sacraments into hard moments. The candy made a clean pinch of the day. When I got home, I stood in the entry and looked at the place that has protected me and demanded I protect it in turn. I touched the door with my knuckles the way Cal used to do, like knocking on wood was less about luck and more about memory. The next morning, I made eggs. The house was too quiet in the way a body is when a fever breaks. Hushed, heavy, almost guilty for all that noise. At 9 sharp, the camera chimed. A woman in an oversized hoodie stood at the edge of the porch steps, looking up. For a breath, I thought it was Tessa, but this woman's shoulders were set wider, older. She lifted her chin. I'm looking for Miss Reed, she said. I am she, I said into the mic, and felt old-fashioned. The woman lifted both hands, palms out. Name's Misty. I notarize around the county. I was asked to witness a deed signing last week at your address. I declined because the ID looked wrong. The laminates weren't right. I wanted you to know that not everyone plays along. I opened the door. She handed me a card. She said, if anyone tries again, call me. I don't like being used. Neither do I said. Over the next month, the paperwork grew like ivy. Arthur's team filed fraud affidavits, froze every account I had, and some I didn't know were mine, and gave me a file crate with tabs and labels and a little pencil pouch so I could carry my life like a student again. The city investigator called twice. The second time he said, we have video at an electronics store. Your daughter's fiance used your card there last Tuesday, same time you were on your landline with Seaboard. That helps, ma'am. Helps, a word as simple as salt. The calls and knocks didn't stop. They changed shape. Friends of friends showed up with casseroles and questions that were not questions. "We heard you're having a hard time," one woman I'd only seen at Christmas Eve services said, squinting at my living room like it might confess. "We're praying you accept help." I am accepting help from people who don't bring notaries. She made the face people make when you don't join their chorus. On a Wednesday afternoon, I found a note taped to my mailbox in Tessa's handwriting. "Grandma, can I come over?" Jax. Jax is 8 and writes like the pencil is a stick he found in the yard. The G was backwards, the X was a plus sign. My hand shook. Naomi watched me from her porch, waiting to see if I would crumble. I didn't. I called Arthur. He said, "Tell them, through counsel, that you will see your grandson at a supervised visit at church on Sunday after service. There's a table in the foyer, a lot of witnesses. That's care, not control." On Sunday, I sat at the table and peeled the backing off name tags. "Hello, my name is," never felt truer. Jax ran into me like a deer. He cried into my cardigan. I kissed his hair. Tessa stood 20 feet away and stared at the garland. She didn't come near. She sent a text later. "If this is what you want, fine. You've chosen strangers over family. Remember that when it's your turn to need." I didn't reply. Truth doesn't require replies. Time did what it does. It thickened, it thinned, it made room for other things. In June, my church started a fix-it Saturday. A retired Navy cook named Mason showed up with a toolbox and a laugh with the low gear of an old truck. He rehung my sagging cabinet door. He showed me how to caulk the tub rim. He told me he once burned a pan so bad on a ship that they named the pan after him. I did not think I would fall in love again. That's not the sort of language nurses use for bones that have already broken once. But Mason's laugh made my house feel less like a bunker and more like a porch in a town where people wave. One evening in July, we sat with iced tea in the paper, and he said, "I know it's not my business, but if anyone tries to put your name on a paper again, I'll stand in the doorway until Jesus comes back." "I don't have to do that," I said. He said, "I know. That's why I'm offering." Cal would have liked him. On August, Arthur called with the kind of victory that doesn't make headlines. "The DA's office won't charge guardianship fraud," he said. "No surprise, no blood. But they will pursue identity theft for the accounts and the unauthorized card use. Seaboard is reversing the address change, and the utilities have already refunded the fees." "What about the little app cards?" I asked. "The ones with easy payments that end up being the price of a used car." "Closed," he said. "You won." I didn't feel like I won. I felt like a person who survived a storm and stood in her yard, seeing the shingles in the neighbor's tree and the fence at a new angle that might be art or might be hazard. Then September brought a letter with the ink of humility. Tessa wrote it by hand, which is how you apologize if you were taught by people who put stamps on things. She said she was sorry. She said Noah left. She said she made choices that felt like help and turned into harm. She said she would make payments for what she had taken, even if it is $10 at a time. She did not ask for money. She did not ask to come over. She asked if I would keep the doorbell video a while, because sometimes she needs to watch herself on that porch and remember what she looks like when she is someone she never wanted to be. I stood in the kitchen with the letter and the sound of a plane overhead and the knowledge that grief comes after the paperwork. I did not rush to forgiveness, because forgiveness does not hurry and remains forgiveness. I put the letter in the file crate, under a tab I labeled with a word that felt like both promise and boundary. Later. Fall in Texas is a rumor. Still, the air changed enough that I could bake without the oven turning the house into afternoon. Mason carved a pumpkin on my porch like he was whittling a ship's figurehead. Naomi pretended to hate Halloween and then handed gummy bears to pirates like she was negotiating maritime law. I went back to the bank on a Wednesday and brought Blake a pecan pie. He grinned like a child. "You didn't have to," he said, the way boys do when they want you to do it again. I set up a new account with the kind of password you can't write on a sticky note. 12 characters, nonsense to anyone except God. Arthur's assistant gave me a number for a credit monitor that sends the kind of text you actually want. Nothing happened today. Have tea. On the first Sunday in Advent, Mason asked if I'd like to see Galveston. I said I'd like to see water I didn't have to put in a glass. We drove with the windows down half the time because air like that expects to be tasted. We ate shrimp out of paper baskets and watched pelicans skim things they could own with effort. We didn't talk about Tessa. We didn't talk about courts. We said small things that belong to people who know the larger things are settled, or at least sleeping. The day after Christmas, a certified letter came from the county clerk. Notice of attempted filing, quitclaim deed declined for defect. The defect was big as a barn. The notary's commission number didn't match the name. Someone tried to record a deed after the court said no, and the county said the kind of no that belongs to a stamp and a database. I brought the letter to Arthur. He didn't crow. Good men don't crow. Spring came. The crepe myrtle remembered what to do. I planted rosemary because rosemary remembers, and so do I. Naomi bought new wind chimes because the old ones sounded like gossip. One evening, Tessa texted a photo of Jax at a little league field, uniform too big. She didn't add words. I sent a single heart. Boundaries are the rails on a bridge, not the bridge itself. In April, the county investigator called a final time. He said, "We're closing your case. Restitution is in place for the cards. If there's anything else, call." He paused. "You did good, ma'am." Not everyone gets to hear that in a voice that isn't their own. I wrote it on the corkboard above the table because nurses like metrics. On an ordinary Tuesday in May, the world did what it does when you quit looking only for danger. It gave back some small music. I made lemon bars for Mason and put them on the little plate with blue meadow flowers. The doorbell chimed, and it was Naomi holding a stack of flyers. Library talk, boundaries for grown children. She wiggled the paper. "You speaking?" she asked. "I'm living," I said. "People can watch that for free." We laughed so loud the camera chimed again, like a bird in spring. If you are listening to this and your house has gone quiet in the wrong way, if your doorbell camera is your only witness, if the people who taught you love now use that word like a lasso, know this: it isn't paranoia to lock your doors. It isn't cruelty to say no. The words "for your own good" are tender or they are a weapon. Only you know which. You are not wrong to decide what you own, including your yes, including your heart. My name is Evelyn Reed. I live in a little brick house in South Austin. My begonias know my voice, and my bank knows my boundaries. My daughter is learning to be a mother to a boy who will watch what she does more than he listens to what she says. I am learning to love a man who hangs cabinets level and laughs like everything might still be possible. I am not signing anything I didn't ask for. I am, finally, breathing in a way that fills the room. If you made it this far with me, tell me where you're listening from. I'll meet you in the comments with the same tea I pour for the people who knock on my door right. If this story helped you, you can tap the little heart that sends a thank you I can spend on rosemary and doorbell storage plans. And if you need to hear it again, come back tomorrow. The house is quiet in the good way now. There's room at the table.